And good day to you. These are the final flights of the KI 162-1. And from a historical perspective, this was an aircraft that never existed on the Japanese side. In fact, it really should have been an aircraft that came in on the German side. Um, and I don't know why, because you have things like the TA 183 and, Baum and Voss line of aircraft that were never built. And this one actually was built and was flying at the end of the war. Uh, the Germans had sent a pair of submarines to Japan, and of the two, one made it. The other one was sunk. And I don't know if it was the United States or Great Britain that sunk it, but it would have been one of the two. Um, the plans were never found in the Japanese inventory, but it was the end of the war. Major cities were being burnt down on a weekly basis. Where are you at with that? Well, so you can't wrap your hands on whether they actually even received the plans or not, because it was more than likely on one of the two submarines, and was it on the one that actually made it or not? Well, we know that they found the axial turbines that were sent for the UMO 004 engine, and we know that because the Japanese had it sitting on a bench and had their own copies that were being produced. And so that's fine. But what you're really looking at here is a Herschel or a Henkel, I forget which, Salamander, Volksfighter, People's Fighter. And there were some 50 of them around the border with Holland, the Netherlands, where they were performing pretty well. There were some issues with them, but there were some issues with the 262 as well. And the same issues plaguing it, by the way. There were 1,600 262s produced, but they could never keep more than 200 in the air at any given time. This is at a time when, a P-51 count would, easily run 10,000 in the air, and there were thousands upon thousands of Typhoons, Spitfires. No matter how good the plane is, it's not going to turn that tide. And B-24s, B-17s, Lancasters. It doesn't take a genius to figure out, you're on the very wrong end of a losing stick here. So you have the aircraft, and so be it. But it's showing up on the Japanese side. And I would have thought that you'd get rid of the TAs and put these in instead, because they actually existed. And then if you want to do an extrapolation from that, you can. These were meant to be disposable fighters. That's the other interesting thing about these. The idea being that, we've got, 1,600 262s, and you can't provide parts to put more than 200 in the air at any given time, especially given the fact that you have not one but two engines that have anywhere from 20 to 30 hours of life, and you have to replace them every 20 to 30 hours of flight, which means, the average aircraft would spend between 2 and 4 hours in the air. Do the math, right? The 262 didn't have to go extremely long ranges. It was a defensive fighter at that point. It would not have designed it to be, go to England and come back sort of thing. Nor were any of the jet engines at the time all that economical. By the way, that continued through the Korean War. So you get to looking at this aircraft, and it's a great aircraft. And the German pilots that flew it thought it had the most beautifully harmonized controls that they'd ever seen on an aircraft, period. Now, these are guys that had flown everything from the BF-109 all the way through the K series and the Focke-Wulf series all the way through the Dora series. and everything in between. So it wasn't, and not talking about inexperienced pilots here, and they really thought that the aircraft was something else. And it had its issues. Like I said before, the 262 had its issues. But the idea behind this plane was you build them as economically as possible, and you have to understand the way Germans built their aircraft. They never really firmly grasped the idea of mass production at that time. Lots of hand fitting, lots of one-off changes, lots of changes to the production line. It was just not something that you really wanted to get involved in from a mass production standpoint. Things that the Americans, the Russians, the British would just have scoffed at. They would put all sorts of hours into a Tiger tank, whether it was the 1 or 2, King Tiger, Royal Tiger, whatever they want to call it, Bengal Tiger. Seems to be a lot of misapprehension on our part as to what the aircraft, the tank's name was. But I'm throwing that out as an example. You could literally have built, for what it cost to build one Tiger II, you could have built 20 Shermans, maybe 30. Well, which would you rather have on the battlefield? Well, there's one thing I can promise you about a Tiger II. It can't replace 20, 30 Shermans. Yeah, you're going to kill 5 of them. Great. While the rest of them sneak around your backside, blow off your treads, hit you with enough Willie Pete to white phosphorus rounds to make you want to abandon the tank in the first 30 seconds and go back to the backside of the tank and blow the engine out of the vehicle. It's just the realities of war, folks. The Russians did a lot of study on this and realized that when you build a T-34, it's not going to be up in the air. It's not going to be up in the air. I'm sitting here looking at this thing. It's not going to be in combat all night long before it's destroyed. Therefore, you just build it good enough to last for the battle, recover the tank, and repair it if you can. If not, you forget it and put another one out there. There's not a lot of percentage in putting war assets out with a short lifespan and putting lots and lots and lots of effort into them because they're not going to last. Well, it turned out it was just as true of German vehicles, armored fighting vehicles, as it was of Russian fighting vehicles or American fighting vehicles. In fact, the study came up when they were talking about the Sherman, and the thing back from the field is, why do you have this? And this was a late realization when they got to Normandy. We need a high-velocity gun. And they said, well, that's great, but high-velocity guns don't last that long. And the report came back from at least some of the guys in the field is, if you get 100 rounds in combat out of a tank, I mean actual tank-to-tank combat, I've yet to see it. And that was a bit of an epiphany for me. The Allied version of things was that you get in a tank versus tank capability scenario, you weren't going to last very long. And they were killing lots of German armor, so it wasn't that different from that side, even though they were on the defensive. Yes, they weren't losing as many aircraft. So this is the first time you start seeing Germany start looking at this on the aircraft side as, the pilot gets in trouble, he needs to bail out, we get him back to the airfield and give him another aircraft. That was the idea behind it, and it did not go over well. There was a lot of resistance, but it turned out to be a beautiful fighter. And I think from the standpoint that if you climbed into a German fighter towards the end of the war, it was a highly disposable asset. It was not like you were going to, the Allies were flying inferior aircraft anymore. This was not 1939, 1940. There were very few aircraft that could hang with the 109 series at the very outset of the war. Spitfire being one, the Hurricane more or less being another one. And interestingly enough, the P-40 in some altitude regimes could hang with it in 109 just fine, thank you very much. But they were far and few between. There were lots of the Marine Sayers, there were lots of the Balks, there were lots of the PZ series of aircraft, 13s, 12s, 24s. There are lots of aircraft out there that could not hang with a Messerschmitt product in the air. And so your aircraft had a reasonable expectation of coming back. Well, at this stage of the war, that's not true anymore. Even the 262, with all its advantages, had to land, had to take off, and there were lots of Allied aircraft around to take them. And they weren't good at turning, delicate engines. You had to set them and gently advance the throttle, and gently decline the throttle. And it's true of this aircraft. You slam the throttle forward, it'd flame out on you. And then you have the choice of bailing out and getting another aircraft or not. And this was a realization of that. All right, they weren't going to put a whole lot of money into the aircraft. When it broke, you go get another aircraft. Your availability was whatever came off the end of the assembly line. It was a realistic realization of what combat in 1944-45 was. Now, the Allies, it was a very different situation. You can climb in your P-51, and your greatest danger to you was not German aircraft. It was anti-aircraft. You go down to go strafe a German airfield, you get one pass. You make a second pass, you're dead. Because fire control from a land-based stable reference like that is easy. Okay? Fire control from a ship where you're pitching and curving and turning and the platform is mobile is a whole order of magnitude different. But this aircraft does represent that. So you're talking low 9 turning speed, decent altitude, and I'm going to say barely adequate firepower. Okay? And I do mean barely adequate. It is also somewhat slow. It is a bit better with this aircraft to use it as a defensive fighter than it is to use it as an offensive fighter. You kind of slowly creep into an area where you've got a chance of surviving very long, and you establish yourself there. Take on all comers, because it's very hard to outmaneuver this aircraft. But its weaknesses lie in the lack of speed and the lack of firepower. There's an aircraft that fairly screams to get a third gun in it. Yeah, it's a aircraft that would fairly scream to have the M39 213Cs rotary cannon. Would have done this very well. So you can see by that little series just how effective the aircraft can be. It can literally rip aircraft out of the sky right and left when you're dealing with intruders or you're defending an airspace. But when you see a 262 HG2, I needed to fly a little more defensively than I was. But I'm not sure it would have made all that much difference. Okay, so as the game has gone in this particular game, we have slowly clawed our way back. And taking it to the other side quite a bit. And you'll see this game seesaw back and forth over and over again with both sides fighting very hard. In a lot of ways, this is a game that's very suited to the 162, the way it's gone out. I'm defending an airfield. Well, actually, I'm not defending an airfield so much as I am trying to take it over now. They have taken the airfield from us. There's just enough arc on these guns to make this less than ideal for a turning dogfight, believe it or not. Or I'm doing some outstandingly bad shooting. Alright, so we got him out of the way. Going to go after the air defense aircraft. And that's... I'm getting some help here. Taking the airfield back. We have it back. And we'll move on from here. All right, we just need to get another base in here. All right. Got a heavy. Oh, it's a 262 that shot us down earlier. Okay. And the ever ephemeral draw. Don't see those very often now, do you? Yes, I am enjoying my coffee. Deal with it. All right. See what we did here. Yeah. So. 10 kills. Got an assist there. So it says I did an awful lot of solo fighting in there too. Alright, and I am giving you an extra long video today. I missed a day the other day because of some headphone problems. So this is a bit of a makeup. I gave you another long one the day before. And good day. Well, this is probably the last time that you will see the KI-162-1. Make sure I got that right. Yeah, I do. And you're probably going to say, why? Well, it's come to the end of the line. I've got enough money to, or I've got enough research points to get the 162-2. And so there's no reason to keep it. But I've still got to get the silver for it. So it's time to do the last flight, tell you the guy it's the last flight, and move on. What I'm doing here is just making sure that I don't spend a lot of the free experience. And make sure I have enough footage here to use an old term. To make it worth it, get you a good long video, I guess will be the term I would use. Well, you don't see that very often where you actually get to blast the hell out of the 262 with a 162. Usually they're way too quick for that. And probably time to render opinions on it. Alright, so that being said, what do I think of the aircraft? Well, when it comes to getting involved in exactly the stuff I'm doing right now, it is probably the best plane out there. That being said, there's no way in hell I'm going to survive this for more than a few more seconds because I am way outnumbered here. We're going to turn real quick. Yeah. Thought we had more people than we had in there, or they dissolved real quick. I don't know which is the story. But that's okay, because we have enemy aircraft in our area here, and I want them to go away very quickly. And I've lost him here for a second. Okay. Oh, got too near that damn cliff. Yeah, there's no excuse for that. I should have just waited. Let's see where we're at here. Okay. It's an aircraft that's extremely aerodynamic. It is a great dogfighter, provided you're not outnumbered 7-1, 8-1. It's an aircraft that, to a large extent, really is let down by the guns. They're a little light for what you want to do. To be blunt, great turner, No particular devices on the aircraft. It's even got some altitude capability. It has no problem being at 8,000 feet. Got a little bit more arc to the gun than I like, but it's more than manageable. But it's a plane where you really wish you had the third or fourth gun, to be blunt. Okay, I guess everybody's heading in toward the airfield. And I see the GA coming in on our airfield, which I just got back. And, you know, truth in advertising. Well, let's play around the cliff some more, given my great flying skills I just demonstrated. No, you got me on your tail now. You're not getting away. Especially not in a 183, TA-183. Let's see. Get this thing turned around. And we got our patooties handed to us. Nine kills, 1 assist. And Lucky Breeze did his normal good job. All right. So, let's see where we're at. Well, that's so little, I'm not even going to worry about it. Okay, so we got that taken care of. I just need a mere 4,200,000 silver. And it's time to say goodbye. Alright, so we have aircraft to go earn. But, gotta say, I enjoyed the aircraft. I'm interested in, speaking of which, since it brought it up, what's going to happen with this. And so, sure enough, the Hunter has shown up. And I already have some experience towards it. I am going to be more than interested in what this aircraft is. I've seen let's take a look. It's the first time I've been able to look at it. You get the 4 Aiden cannon. That'll be the blooper cannon, I'm sure. Bombs and rockets. Survivability is 545. Airspeed is going to be 349. Maneuverability is going to be in the 12-second range. And that will be with a 9-point pilot in it. 12.2. And just short of 6,000 feet in the altitude. This is going to put it firmly in the multi-role, which everything has been this far. $32 rockets. Wow. But they only do 600 damage, but they do have a nice blast radius on them. That's going to be kind of nice. Or you can get 2 500-pounders. Interesting. Well, you know what I will be working on in the meantime. Until then, I'm going to wrap this one up. I want to thank you. Please remember to like the video, to subscribe, and if you want to support the channel, you can do so on the channel main page. Upper right hand corner, you'll find the Patreon link. Have a great day.